G'day. So this should be a fairly short video this time. Little off the track. I was needing to make some sort of small maker type Christmas present, and this will just take you through what I made. So in this case, I wanted to make something that was based on making something in software, and because I'm familiar with microcontrollers and using micropython, decided to use that as well. The idea sort of came from basically looking at opening some fortune cookies, and I was thinking, hey, it'd be interesting to have a little device that just sort of spat out fortunes whenever you wanted, kind of like a magic 8-ball type thing. And I'll just take you through sort of the process of where I found the resources, putting it together, and what the end result looked like. Okay, so the first thing I needed to make this fortune application was a bunch of fortunes. So I did find some fortunes out on GitHub. This one called Fortune Cookies Galore seemed to be someone had put together fortunes sourced from different locations, and we have a look at the fortunes here under fortunes.txt. So this is the raw data I needed to be able to display fortunes on OLED on an ESP32. You can see here there's a couple of thousand fortunes here, so it gives me plenty to select from, and I'm thinking I'm going to use some sort of random selector where every time you start up the microcontroller it selects one of these fortunes. Some of them may be a bit long. I know I've only got about 80 characters to work with on the OLED, so I may have to filter out some of these, and looks like there's some funny characters in here that may not work as well. Some of the quotes and things like that may not work with what I'm doing, so I may have to clean up some of the fortunes to be able to show those ones as well. But basically looks like a good source here. The only other piece of the puzzle, or the only other challenge for the puzzle, is working out what I was going to display this on. So I decided to go with one of these. I've used these before. This is ESP32 that has a built-in OLED. It might be a bit of overkill for what I'm doing. I don't really need the Wi-Fi part of it or the Bluetooth part of it. Still, these aren't too expensive, so I think this will work as a good way of keeping the fortunes in memory, selecting them randomly, and then showing them on the OLED. And also has a couple of buttons on there, so even better. So I put the code for this out in a GitHub repository. Again, it's under my user code, and it's called espFortune. I'll put the link down below in the description. But the actual code, I broke it into two pieces. So I need to do some pre-processing on the fortunes that came off that other GitHub site. So I used this thing called Fortune Maker, which is a C# program. And you see under here, it's really just a C# project's the main part of that, and I'll run through that in a sec. And the other part was this micropython program that actually runs on the microprocessors to display the results. So let's have a look at that. Okay, let's walk through the C# program. I'm using Visual Studio Community Edition for this. It just seems to lay things out a lot better for me. At least I'm more familiar with it. So I've got a big comment at the beginning of this program. So this is just a command line program in C#, so it doesn't take any arguments. It just runs and reads in the Fortune text file that I got off GitHub, and breaks it into multiple files. So this comment at the beginning sort of explains everything that happens, but basically I need a way of breaking up the content from each fortune so I can spread it across 5 lines on a SSD1306 OLED display, which is the one on the ESP32. And the way I did that was to create a separate dictionary item for each fortune, and inside the dictionary item have L1 to L5 that is what gets shown on each of the 16 character lines of the display. I did all this as pre-processing rather than doing it in the on the actual ESP32 just because it was easier. I was trying to get through this fairly quick, so I pre-processed it and it worked out fairly well. And the result of this, I have multiple Python modules that contain up to 150 fortunes that have these dictionary items in them. So you'll see over on the actual micropython code that I can just read one of these modules in at random and then choose one of the fortunes at random and show it on the display fairly easily. There's not much code needed to do that, and by breaking it into multiple modules, I can save quite a bit of memory on the microcontroller. I don't have to worry about running out of memory. I know everything's going to be a maximum size of 150 fortunes in a module. So let's have a look at the code. So the first part is it just reads in the fortune text file line by line. That's what this is doing. Starts up a fortune and a sequential file number .py file. So this is the modules that are going to be used in MicroPython. It makes a new one of these modules every 150 fortunes. So basically breaking up to 2,000 fortunes that are coming in the fortune text file into 150 fortunes in each of the Python modules. So do some initial filtering. So I can't do anything with a fortune that's more than 80 characters long because it just won't fit on the OLED. So I filter out those ones. And then I go through and if it's I've created 150 fortunes, so I've got to modulus 151, then it just breaks off and makes a new fortune file to write to. And otherwise it's using this routine line to dict to read one of the lines in from the fortune.txt file and changing it to a dictionary item, a Python dictionary item. And this is the code that does this line to dict. So it's got the fortune line, so a single fortune that's coming out of the text file. I break it into words, so basically do a split, where I split up the words by using spaces. So it gets an array of words, and then it runs through that array. So for each word and fortune words for that fortune. Does some more cleanup. So I was having problems with having a single quote or a double quote in the fortune when I was putting it into the dictionary item. So I just cleaned those out, just made them disappear. I go through, and if I can fit one of these clean words onto the current line that I'm building up, or if it's less than 16 characters long, which is the maximum width of the OLED, then I add it to the dictionary line. If I can't, then I start a new dictionary line, and the dictionary lines all start with L, and this is the processing to start a new dictionary line. If I've got any lines at the end, or haven't got to 5 dictionary lines, then I just fill in the additional dictionary lines. So I'll just show you this running. So let me click the run. Runs fairly fast. It waits for a key at the end. Lines. So the result of this is this is basically what's coming in. So I've got a couple of thousand of these fortunes coming in from fortune.txt, which is just text. And this is an example of what comes out. So this is 150 fortunes that are broken up into a dictionary item, and each dictionary item is identified by a sequential number, which is useful later on because I want to randomly select this, so I can generate which one I randomly select by just putting an F and a random number between 1 and 150. But you can kind of see the format of the dictionary here, and where the fortune is very short, you see the additional line 4, line 5 are just blank. And that all makes it really easy to display over in the ESP32. So let's have a look at the MicroPython code now, and then we can have a look at it running. Okay, let's have a look at how this is going to work on the microcontroller. So I'm using MicroPython, and I have this main.py .py, so this automatically gets fired up when the device gets powered on, and all it's doing is importing a module called OLED, which I wrote, and it's calling OLED show fortune. So let's have a look at OLED. So OLED, it's doing an import of the SSD1306, which is the OLED display, importing time and importing random for getting random numbers. And then this is the routine that it gets fired up when it gets powered up, show fortune. So the first thing it does is work out a fortune file number, and it gets a number between 1 and 13. And remember, I've got 13 modules which have 150 fortunes in each module, or 12 modules with 150 fortunes in each module. So first I select one of those modules at random, so I don't fill up memory with the full set of fortunes, just 1/12 of the fortune list. So at random it gets one of those modules that power up. Then this thing here is just for firing up initializing the OLED. So I set the size of the OLED. And after that I get a random number between 1 and 150. So that gives me my fortune number. So remember, there's 150 dictionary items in each of those modules. Each one starts with F and then a number. So this gets appended to make the particular dictionary item I want. And I use the get attribute function in micropython to get the particular line, fortune line. And then simple as calling the OLED routine to first clear it out. Fill 0 just clears the OLED off to make sure there's nothing there, and then it builds each line of text. So you see line 1 to line 5. It's just filling in the text from each of those 5 lines that fortune has, puts it in the right place on the screen, and then does a show on the OLED, and that's the end of the routine. So really simple, because it only has to fire once when it fires up. When it gets powered on, I can just trigger this by powering on the ESP32, have it do this once and show a new fortune. And let's have a look at that running on the ESP32. So this shows you what the code does. Don't worry about the scrolling lines in there. You don't see that in real life. But basically, as I turn on power, the microprocessor fires up. MicroPython runs the main routine, finds a fortune at random and displays it on the screen. So this shows you what it kind of looks like if you didn't see it without the scrolly video on there. You can also press the reset button to get it to restart as well and show another fortune. This is the final version, so I kind of made a wooden base for it, a switch. I put a little naked battery in there. I put the description for where you get that battery in the description below. And here you see the whole thing running where I turn on the power or press the reset to get a new fortune each time. Looks like it's working.